how did your Duke experience influence your decision to be an author?
That is a great question. And first, before I start talking about that, I'd like to thank you. Thank you very much, Liz. Thank you, Jana. Thank you, Nicole, for inviting me. This is such a delight. Thanks to the book club for inviting me. So my Duke education, my Duke experience, I gave this some thought because it wasn't an obvious answer. I didn't have an answer immediately, but without a doubt, two reasons. One is that my experience at Duke, I was a history major and I fell in love with doing historical research. I didn't know that that's what history was all about when I started at Duke as an undergraduate. I just loved the stories and, like whatever class you enjoy in high school and whatever class you do well in high school, you think, oh, I'm going to major in that at Duke, So I gave it a try and I actually learned what historical research is all about. I learned how to do deep and fascinating and exciting historical research. It wasn't just something I read out of a textbook anymore. It was documents written by the people in the eras that we're studying and like a fascinating little mystery to follow, right? Mysteries to discover through the historical record. So I totally fell in love with history. And because I fell in love with history, I ended up going and getting a PhD in history, in European history. And as I was working on my PhD, I started writing fiction. And the reason for that, so this is, a couple steps away from Duke, but it started at Duke because I learned how exciting historical research was at Duke. And as I was working on my PhD, it was hard, it was hard work in multiple languages, different sorts of documents. I had to learn how to read handwritings, not just different languages. And I was working on my PhD and I started reading romance novels because they were fun and they were like candy, right? Like really good candy. And so I wrote one. I came up with one while I was working on my historical research, just for fun, just to relax. And that's how I actually became a novelist. It was because I was working on historical research. So I'd say one answer, one response is, or one reason Duke impacted my career as a novelist is because I just fell in love with history. The other is that when I went to Duke, I had not, I wouldn't say it was a sheltered life, but I'd had a life in a suburban community. And although we'd done some traveling, my family, and, I had a wonderful education. When I went to Duke, there were people from all over the place at Duke. So I experienced living with, in the same room, in the same dorm, in the same classes, living with and experiencing, and also taking courses about things that I had never heard of before. So the breadth of educational opportunity, both in relationships and in intellectual endeavors, was extraordinary at Duke. So Duke made me further interested in things that I never expected. So that's it.
Yeah, I love that. I think that you're not alone in that experience at Duke either. So which is cool. Like sort of next, there are challenges that you faced while writing this book. And so,
So Liz, you're breaking up a little bit, but I think you asked the second question.
Oh, yep. Yeah. Okay. Am I better now?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me try again. Oh, do you want me to ask it again?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. Are there any challenges you faced while writing this book? And if so, how did you overcome them on the way to publication?
So this is a really great book to ask this question about, because some books were much less challenging to write than this one. But every book, at least for me, I can't speak for all authors, obviously, but every book I've written, whether it's a novella, a short book, or a full-length novel, has its challenges and its joys and triumphs. So there are moments of exasperation and moments of exaltation. This one had a lot of moments of exasperation before I started writing it. And the reason for the challenge that this book posed is because it was not supposed to happen. It wasn't supposed to I wasn't supposed to write it. I wasn't supposed to have to write this book. And it was an attempt to begin a new series while finishing an old series. What happened with this novel was, well, there are two ways in which it was a challenge. That's one of them. I was trying to sort of put together various series because of choices that my publisher made. And so I had to come up with this book, but I had already laid the groundwork for the characters in previous books. And when it came time to write this book, the characters told me they wanted to do something different. And I was just talking about this with a friend today. Sometimes the characters will insist that you do so, and I know it sounds crazy. I know for folks who, especially folks who aren't in the creative work, it sounds like, there are people talking in my ears, and maybe there are, but once I get to know characters, they really do tell me what to do. And if I don't do what they want me to do, they get very testy. So I had previously, and by getting testy, they make me miserable. I really love to write, but I'll be writing and writing and writing, and then I'll know it's wrong. So with these characters, I had set them up to do certain things. And by the time I got to their novel, they wanted something else. This is my biggest novel by far of any novel I've written. And I've written a couple of big novels, meaning that it takes place in multiple places, that it takes place over multiple years. Oftentimes my novels are much sort of more contained in a one location or two locations and over a short period of time. And this novel, the characters said, no, you have to write this kind of sweeping epic story, not the more contained story that I had been writing. So that was, we fought, me and my characters, we fought for a while over that. But once I accepted that they were telling me what to do, it was much better. So it was super fun writing it once I accepted my fate.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So last question, and I think that I think some other people had this question that when they submitted them was, what do you hope that your readers will gain from reading your book?
Oh, that's super easy. I hope they will gain an enjoyable few hours. I really just want my books. I mean, that's my first and dearest hope. I would love for my books to transport readers, to make a reader feel good, briefly worried, briefly tense, just not sure how they're going to get out of this one, or just not sure, but because that makes the satisfaction all the better at the end. I would love for my readers to laugh. This pair is in this book in particular, they've got this conversational style that I hoped would make my readers laugh, and a little just relaxation and escapism. I'm happy if my readers learn something from my novels. I'm a historian, so what I put in this is the history that I've learned, but mostly I just want folks to get out of it joy